We're going to try this again, folks. Hello and welcome. I'm Lauren Rosen. I am going to be joined here momentarily by Kelley Frankie and Jenna Overbaugh, and we will be talking about how treatment and recovery can inform life beyond recovery and our overall well-being. So, as we get started, I'm trying to get some things done. Hold. I'm so sorry. Trying to get people added on. Hi.
Hello.
I accepted. Oh my gosh, we're
Hi,
all here.
Jenna.
We're here.
We did it, you guys.
We did it. Well,
We sure did.
Lauren, I was trying to get it ready, and then I had a flashback to the last time we did a live together. Remember,
Yes.
I had to hold the phone all the way up
Oh
here
my
the
God,
entire
that's
time.
right. I
And I was like,
completely
I really
forgot.
don't want to do that again. So I was like, I'm just gonna get in this teeny tiny position in my kitchen where I know I'm good.
I love it. I love it. So we're so
Lauren.
happy to have you here. What were you gonna say something, Kelley?
Did you add?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's happening. It's all we figured it out.
Okay, got it.
So I'm so excited to have you on today, Jenna.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Lauren, it looks like it's so nice there. Oh my gosh. And Kelley, I haven't talked to you in forever.
I know. I was just gonna say it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So super happy. This is just a topic that I don't know. I feel like I've been getting it more and more. What's a good exposure for this? Or what should I do during this very precise situation? Or people will come to treatment and they'll say oh yeah, well, I don't have that type of OCD, so ERP won't really work for me. And I'm like, I feel like I wish I learned ERP strategies as a kid. I feel like it's just so much bigger than what I feel like most people know it's supposed to be about. And so, yeah, I was just hoping to come on and we can nerd out about that a little bit.
A freaking man. Amen. Oh, before we get further along, Jenna, can you introduce yourself for those of you? Hopefully people know who you are, but if they don't, I want them to.
Yeah, so my name is Jenna Overbaugh. I am a licensed therapist. I'm here in Wisconsin. So it's also really nice here, which is not typical. I know it's nice over there for you guys, but not typically here. And yeah, I've been working with people who have OCD and anxiety since 2008. I've also been open about my own experience, specifically with postpartum OCD and anxiety. That's a really nice compliment that I just saw. Thank you.
Yeah. Just ignore those.
Okay.
It's always here.
Yep.
And yeah, I fell in love with exposure and response prevention from a really early age. I always knew that anxiety sucked, and I always knew that things just got so much better once you ripped that Band-Aid off and you kind of just went for it and you did it. And then when I realized that exposure and response prevention was actually a thing in college, I just fell in love with it. So, I've always kind of researched that, studied that. And I've been doing it since 2008. So I'm over on Instagram now. That's where you can find me, obviously. But I work at OCD. So I'm the image behind our social media, and trying to just spread the word about OCD and how wonderful exposure and response prevention is.
And crushing it.
Oh, thanks.
Really. Yep. In fact, please go check out Jenna's Instagram page, because she's got lots of wonderful resources on there and does lots of videos and the like. So, yeah. I had a question that I wanted to. Oh, sorry, Kelley.
I wasn't gonna say anything. I was gonna say, shall we start our conversation? Because I know you and I had talked about.
Yeah, I had a question for, I think, each of us to sort of start the conversation around this, which specifically, if there was a skill that you've learned through learning about ERP, learning about treatment generally, because I want to incorporate mindfulness and acceptance and commitment therapy into this realm as well. what skill would you say has had the biggest impact, positive impact on your life more generally outside of the realm of OCD?
Kelley, I'll let you go first. I don't mind. I can go first. I can dive in.
Okay.
So I guess Dr. Reed Wilson, I mean, it's not like a super novel concept, but the way that he described it, I would go with two. One, that the content doesn't matter as much as we think. And I spent so much time treating people like for their contamination concerns or treating people for their doubts in their relationship, and not really paying attention to the overarching like generic sense of doubt and just the intolerance of uncertainty that people have in their life in general. And that's when I started to realize that like they and myself, they would just bounce to something else, right? Like that whack-a-mole game, it would just bounce to something else. And so like in my own life and applying these skills to my own life and also helping people, I found so much benefit in being able to like go abstract and think about the doubt and how good it is to be able in everyday life to sit with doubt. And that's obviously kind of my inspiration for the chat today. But then secondly, I think this concept of like doing the hard thing now so that it doesn't get harder later and so that it can be easier later. I remember like even when I was playing Heads Up 7-Up when I was super young and I was super anxious, like, oh my gosh, what if they pick me? Or, oh my gosh, what if I get it wrong? And I was really anxious about that. I remember from a very early age even thinking like, well, I better do it now because it's only going to be harder like next time, right? Like I better do it now because it's just going to get harder. And so I think that concept has been really helpful. Like it's going to be hard now, but this is the easiest it's going to get. And like if I keep avoiding it, it's only going to get harder.
So true.
So that really helps me out. I think just constantly thinking of like my tomorrow self or the 2 year from now self, like that's why we have to do the hard things. We have to do it for that future self.
Right on. Yeah. Those are both great examples. Yeah. Of how the work can impact. Yeah. I love that, especially the last piece, like we're the same person, right? But we think of ourselves as these separate entities, like screw that guy tomorrow, really is what we're saying half the time. Right.
Yeah. Good luck with future me. He's really,
Well, I think I saw a TikTok clip the other day of Matthew McConaughey. I think it was during like an award acceptance speech or something, where he said he was telling some story about like, who's your hero? Someone had asked him, who's your hero? And he didn't really know. He didn't have a role model. He didn't have a hero that came to mind. But then he thought about it and he was like, myself 10 years from now, that's my hero. Like, that's my hero. And then 10 years later, he thought about it again and it was still 10 years later. And I thought that was really cool. Like to this concept of like, we need to invest in ourselves. And yeah, it just came back to that whole concept of like doing the hard thing now so that your brain can get the message for later that this is not as scary as you think it is, that you can handle it and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for those insights. Kelley, I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on this.
So how it's generalized to my daily life, so many ways. So let me try to make it short and sweet. But I think overall, it's been accepting that I don't have control over things. And I think as a parent specifically, is you have this little human being that is like, it has everything. It's everything, right? And it just does whatever it wants. And at any second, something bad could happen. And you have to just let that go and be like, oh, they're on the playground and they're swinging and, oh, they could just fall and crack their head open. Well, might as well stick to values and let her just keep swinging, right? So it's letting go of control. And I think even in any relationship, right? Like feeling like I have to know if they're upset or I have to know if they're the one. It's kind of like, well, we don't know. And right now it's values. So it's always going back to values and realigning with that. I felt that that's the most powerful concept for me.
For sure. And again, like that's not just applicable and helpful for someone who has OCD, right? It's not like when you no longer meet diagnostic criteria, like you don't use that skill anymore. Like these are all things that I wish everyone knew.
I know. Well, it's so true.
Yeah. And especially because part of not meeting diagnostic criteria involves doing all of the things that you're doing to
Yeah,
get to that
knowing how
spot.
to
Like
do
it's
it.
not like that.
Yeah.
And then you stop doing those things, and then you would go back to resisting thoughts and feelings, get back into compulsions, and then you would not mysteriously meet those diagnostic criteria again, right?
Yep.
So
Yep, it's true.
no,
I often,
you're
I'm
great.
sure you guys too probably run into this every so often. Like, I don't know. I feel like I have to give people the motivational talk sometimes. Like, this is not like The Biggest Loser. Like, you can't have gotten yourself into a place that you really, really don't like. Come for like this hardcore 3-month, like very regimented, like very supervised experience, and then go right back and then go back to the way that things were and expect for it to just, it's not like an in and out type of experience, right? I think therapy in general, and also especially ERP, right? It's not this in and out experience. You go and you're not trying to get rid of the obsessions. You're not trying to get rid of anything. You're really reworking like your relationship with these things and your confidence and your self-efficacy and just all of those things.
Totally. But it's funny that you give the example of The Biggest Loser, because even The Biggest Loser is not the thing that they make it look to be.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Like if you're going to have, I mean, I have other potential issues with that show anyway, but like it's not like, oh, well, I drop all of this weight and now I'm healthy. It's right. There's like whatever, like I said, bigger conversation, but there's also just the issue of like, of having a wellness around food and around your relationship to body is an ongoing relationship that you have to tend to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just who you are now, right? It's just a person who's very aware of these things and really wants to work on these things and values these things.
Mm-hmm. And I think people get down sometimes about that. Like, oh, like it has to be such a process and like it's ongoing and like, when am I gonna not have to do exposures? And it's like, you don't have to live a life where you constantly do 20 trials a day, but you do need to live a life where you like look in advance to something and predict like, yep, my anxiety is probably going to get in the way like this and like this and like this. And here's my commitment. Here's my plan. I'm sticking to it. I'm locking it in. And this is my decision. It takes, like Lauren, you always mention like mindfulness, having to be mindful and have like a bird's eye view over your thought process. And just be like, oh, I'm going there. Like I'm going there again. I'm treating that like an obsession. I'm not going there. But that there's an exciting part to that too. It doesn't have to be all daunting and work. Like it just is, it's also really rewarding and really invigorating. And hopefully we're making their worlds bigger, right? Like OCD wants to make everyone's world very, very small. And it is work, but it's also like, you're going to expand your world by tenfold. So
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And to add to, because I loved your guys' ideas, I wanted to throw in that one of the things that was revolutionary for me in both my own personal process and in becoming a therapist was really starting to recognize thinking as a behavior.
Yeah.
And that was, for me, that's where mindfulness becomes so, so important, because having the awareness, but also having the ability to practice interrupting thinking and non-judgmentally, and then reorienting your attention towards something that's meaningful to you. Yes, it has a hugely important, piece in terms of OCD recovery. But if I'm meditating or if I'm living my life, doesn't matter, I'll catch myself all the time, like planning into the future or like in an argument with somebody that has nothing to do with OCD. And then I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Hold up. But what Kelley was saying, right? Like that takes me away from focusing on my values and what matters most to me. So if I'm caught up in this invisible behavior, not knowing that I'm the one doing it, then I'm stuck and my life is super, super limited. So that to me has felt like a superpower in many ways.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think a conversation that I think is really helpful for people, again, like not just during therapy, but forever, is like, are you actually problem solving? Or are you ruminating, right?
No.
Like I always tell people, you'll get your answers from doing, not by thinking. Like this ruminative cyclic thinking, like where you're just thinking about the same thing over and over again and you're not actually making a decision about anything, like that's not problem solving. And so,
No.
you know, I get a lot of people, I'm sure you guys do too, where there's like this justification, like I have to think about it. I have to like decide. I have to, you know, be 100% sure. I have to think about this in order to come to some type of conclusion or feel better. And it's like, but that's not functional problem solving. Like that's not you actually taking that next step forward. So even for me in my own life, you know, there are certain things that come up that are just like more real life problems, but still like can totally, you can fall into that rumination trap and all those things. But it's like, okay, is this fun? Am I actually solving the problem? Am I actually solving the problem right now? Like, is this where I want to be investing my energy? Like, is this something that I can solve? Great. And if it's not something that I can solve, great. But either way, rumination is not going to help me get there.
Nope.
And I think just to add to that is that when I'm treating somebody, I often say, let's pick like a few content areas that are not related to OCD and practice this concept of rumination, right? Because we can get so easily hooked into, well, this content's different, or not even having that conversation, but more of like, where's my kid going to go to school when they graduate high school? Seems like a reasonable rumination process, but the reality is that's not helpful. Mm-hmm. Problem solving is helpful. Right. That's just one example, but I think it really helps bring this rumination process to light. Because I think when you're dealing with generalized anxiety disorder, you're really usually hyper-focused on rumination. And I feel like those folks really get it. So sometimes I start there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which to your point, Kelley, our discussion of how it generalizes kind of touches on something that the three of us had discussed outside of this in terms of what we were going to talk about, which is the overlap between OCD and generalized anxiety. And so, you know, most people, I don't know about for you both, but most people who come into my office don't just have obsessions related to OCD. They have a lot of anxiety more generally. They have a brain that tends to latch onto things and to really want to fix and figure out and to be intolerant of doubt. And so helping them to understand this difference between problem solving and rumination is really important. In fact, Kelley and I were just working on a presentation that we're going to be doing for IOCDF the other day and working on a slide.
Are you going to Colorado?
Yes.
Yay! I'll get to meet you
are
guys.
too. Oh, in person.
In person. I know.
3D.
That is going to be so cool.
Yeah,
it is going to be way cool.
We'll be really stressed out because we have 5 presentations.
You have 5 presentations for just that one experience?
Yeah. 5.
Wow.
But,
oh my gosh.
4 presentations and 1 support group. So yeah. But same.
Wow. Yeah, that's gonna be. I'll be there. I'll be there at all of them. I'll be like,
yes.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
thank
good.
you.
Will you be there at the 8 a.m. one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways.
But this idea, it comes up so often, right? This idea that like, well, I have to think this through because it's irresponsible not to, and there's something that I'm going to get. And it's like after you've sucked the marrow from the bone, I love that I'm a vegetarian and I'm giving this, but like you've sucked it out, right? And you're like, I'm going to keep sucking basically on dry bone. It does nothing, right? It's a very short window where you're actually getting something useful out of the process of thinking. And at a certain point, it becomes pretty clear that it's not going to change the outcomes, which then becomes a waste of your time. So don't do that. No.
Stop doing that.
Yeah, stop. Thank you, Bob Newhart. But I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. And we all ruminate, right? Like, I don't think that this is definitely not just people who have OCD. I don't know. I still just keep going back to like, I still, even with my son, Kelley, you have a kiddo, so I'm sure you get it. Like there are certain times where he's uncomfortable with something like participating in a new soccer class or something like that. And it's like, that's a little exposure, right? Like that's a little exposure and encouraging him to like, I know that you feel anxious, honey. I know, like, where do you feel it in your body? Like, I'll sit with you. I'll hang out with you. instead of like, I think if I didn't know about ERP, I would have, like so many other parents have the tendency to do, which is like make them feel better and try to, you know, reassure them that everything is going to be okay. And who knows how helpful that actually is. But it's like, you know, I try to teach my son some of these things every once in a while too, like that anxiety is not dangerous and that it's good to do things a little bit outside of your comfort zone. So again, like I just keep coming back to this idea. I was laughing with someone the other day. I wish we would have learned stuff like this in school versus like, what is a mitochondria?
So much more useful.
I can't believe you
like,
even
I
remember
need
that.
to know how to do taxes. I need to know about student loans, and I need to know about how to handle my emotions.
Emotion regulation for the win.
But
Always.
you don't need to know about the powerhouse of the cell.
It's the powerhouse
not.
of the cell.
That's all I remember. That's
Nope.
it. Mitochondria. Well, they seem to be working whether or not I understand them. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Actually, to that end, with with kids and with wanting to educate at an early age about all of these ideas, I think that that's such an important component to be looking at. I mean, I'd love to see it, to your point, in education in schools. But yeah, do you guys have any thoughts about that? Other than just that we should have it, that would be good.
I don't know if you guys know Dr. Becky. I think it's like Dr. Becky Good Inside. She's like another huge thought leader when it comes to parenting, so on and so forth. And it was really timely. I saw her story this morning. She has lots of great parenting tips, some of which I try to follow, but like not very well. But she had a really great story that aligns with this perfectly about how like she tries to work with her middle child who's like very strong-minded, knows exactly what she wants, but also has like deep feelings and really intense emotions. And she talked about how like she's not trying to get her child through that tantrum. She's not trying to eliminate tantrums. She's trying as a parent to give her child the skills so that when she's an adult, she knows how to handle letdowns about not getting the job that she wanted or getting her heart broken or, you know, getting stuck in traffic, right? Like that. And that I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what we're trying to talk about.
Yeah.
Like I want the people who I see in therapy. I want myself, I want my son, like anyone who is exposed to these ERP concepts. Like I want them to have the skills of mindfulness. I want them to have the skills of diffusion, right? Like not having to accept every thought that you have as true, right? Like being willing and wanting to step outside of your comfort zone little by little because you know that that's what's good for you. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts about that. But Dr. Becky, her story today was incredible. It was great.
So on point. Yeah, I have to check it out. Do you have any thoughts, Kel?
I did, and it left me, but well, I'm sure it'll come back.
I can throw in something, and then I'm sure it'll come back, and then you can share it with us.
Okay, do it.
So one of the things that I think is really interesting based on what Jenna, what you're saying is the relationship between experiential avoidance among, let me break this down a little bit for people who are listening, instead of just using big words. So experiential avoidance is just a fancy way of saying that we tend to avoid uncomfortable experiences like thoughts and feelings and all that good stuff. And what they find in research, it comes up a lot, first of all, in anxiety and OCD, right? That's the main problem is I don't want to have this thought, I don't want to have this feeling, leads to all these behaviors that begin to really negatively impact somebody's life. And so what they found in research is that parents of anxious children, like children with anxiety disorders, their experiential avoidance, so their unwillingness to have thoughts and feelings, actually predicts kids' anxiety.
For sure.
And so, which makes total sense because, when you're a parent and you're watching your child and they're suffering, your initial response, especially if you've been trained like most of us that like, oh, anxiety is bad, is going to be, how do I alleviate my child's anxiety?
Right.
Instead of, oh, wait, how do I help them to accept their anxiety? How do I help them feel this better, and make space for these experiences? And so, if you're unwilling to tolerate the child's emotional experience, you're going to jump in and you're going to accommodate, which is something that we see all the time in OCD and anxiety treatment.
Yeah.
So,
I think I remembered.
yes,
I remembered. It was about self-compassion.
Yay!
And validation. But yeah, I mean, being a mom and seeing your kid dysregulated or scared or sad, I think something that I've noticed is my initial reaction is, I know you're scared. I know that this is scary. I know it feels this way. I'm here if you need me, just like you said, Jenna, is like what you tell your son. But I don't think we do that to ourselves so often, right? Where we go, okay, I know you're scared, right? And that doesn't mean something bad's going to happen. And it doesn't mean that I somehow can do these behaviors to try to make that change or change the future outcome. But yeah, I mean, I think really just recognizing that children and ourselves need to be validated and seen and not just dismissed, right? Which is like, oh, well, I should just do an exposure. It's like, well, yeah, but don't be so mean about it. You can be nice on the way on your little journey.
Such a really important point.
Yeah.
Like reparenting ourselves essentially. And I think that that's a lot of what we do, right? My hope is anyway, as a therapist, that's what I'm able to support my clients in doing is being able to do what Jenna and Kelley, you guys are trying to do with your children. What I try to do with my stepchildren is like, it's okay to feel this. And I can hold your hand while you feel it. I can't take it away. It's okay to feel this, right? Like, let's go on a walk and feel this. Let's have a sandwich, because it's lunchtime and feel this. Or let's have this thought, So you rule, Kelley. Sorry, I had to.
Thanks. And to be imperfect about it too.
Totally, yes, with both oneself and one's children.
And parenting, yes, because there's times, Jenna, where at the end of the day, you're like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm just gonna deal with it and.
For sure. Yeah, no, I remember, I think I was in the car with my son the other day and he was anxious about something. He gets really anxious when there's a game of any kind. Like, I think it's the anticipation, like, am I going to win or am I going to lose? Like, that's really upsetting for him. And he says, like, my heart breaks whenever I lose a game. That's really sad. But I would even find myself, like, my husband and I, we would be playing Mario or like Kids Monopoly or something. And we would like try to make it so that he would win. And I was like, we can't do that. Yeah. We can't do that. Like, we can't make it so that he wins. Like, that's right. That's giving him a message, but it's also giving me a message. It's giving him the message that like, he's only supposed to win, that it's dangerous for him to lose. And it's giving me the message that I can't handle his negative emotion. Right. And so it's like all these messages, like your brain is constantly picking up what you're putting out. Your brain is constantly picking up those messages. And so, yeah, like now it's a little exposure for both of us, but like we will intentionally, like we'll not let him win. And it sucks every time, but it's like that Eli 10 years from now or like 15 years from now. I want him to have the skills to be able to manage that later. And it's hard. And I will tell him like, well, we're just in the car right now. Like, let's just be right here in the moment. Like,
I do that all the time.
Let's just be here in the moment. So like, as I'm preaching to Eli to try to be more mindful and like, let's just be in the moment right now. Like, let's just be together. I'm in my head thinking of like, okay, how am I going to help him when this happens? How am I going to do this? Well, should I have said that 3 days ago? Da-da-da. And I'm like, Kelley, I need to take your advice more. As I'm telling my son this thing, I'm not even taking my own advice.
Welcome to being a therapist and a parent. It's really fun in there.
And add OCD in there for ourselves, and we're screwed.
Yeah.
Woo!
Woo! It's a fun journey. It's a fun journey, isn't it? Yeah.
We can be imperfect. We can be imperfect.
In fact, we are going to be. So, I'm aware of the time. Jenna, thank you so much for coming on to talk with us. This was lovely and always a pleasure to talk with you. Awesome. And, at some point we'll have to do this again.
Yeah. Yes. Awesome. That would be great. Thanks, you guys.
And we're excited.
And if you're listening out there, just keep doing the hard stuff. It's good for you, not just for your OCD, but it's good for your confidence, for your character. It's good to do hard things.
It
Heck
is.
yeah. What a great note to end on. Thank you, Jenna. And thank you all for joining us. Go
Yes.
check out Jenna Overbaugh on Instagram. It's jenna.overbaugh, right?
Yep.
Beautiful.
And we'll see you in
And-
Denver.
I know.
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't wait. Like the OCD community is gonna just get like flooded with all these images of like all these people
I know.
together.
Everyone. Yeah.
I feel like we didn't really exist prior to the pandemic, and so like we've always been separated for the most part. But yeah, we're gonna have to blow some people's minds and get like some videos going with everyone together. Maybe like a TikTok dance would be really cool. We'll get it going.
Oh dear. I don't know if I can do that. I'll watch.
You guys are gonna be so busy doing presentations.
I know.
That's true.
Oh.
I'll be there. Front row.
Oh,
Awesome. Thank you,
likewise.
Jenna.
Bye,
All right.
everybody.
Bye, ladies.
Okay. Adios.